which leads me into talking about today. Whew, such great questions that came up today. Trisha said, I've enjoyed the videos and sense of community. I'm going to rewatch all 5 this weekend. Way to go. They come down tomorrow to make sure it sinks in. Now, Trisha and several others have used this phrase, sink in. And I really wanted to kind of dig into that to kind of help shift this from a very passive space and into a proactive space. So when I saw this concept sink in, I started to ask myself, what helps this information to sink in? What does that mean? What does it mean that we think that the information is just going to disperse to us, which granted, yes. If I gave you a book on how to swim, you may know and could even present to me a way to swim. You would say first you maybe put on a bathing suit, and then you put your feet in the water, and then you move your hands. But to know the buoyancy, to know how to breathe, to know all the fine nuances, we can't just learn about it. That's just not information that sinks in. We have to learn by doing. And so information helps sink in by becoming a learner and being open and absorbing it and being curious and shifting, not from just like the information seeking. This comes from, we can identify when we are loaded with the information, but we're failing to execute and take action. When we say things like, well, I know what to do, I'm just not doing it. Or I know what to do, I'm just struggling to make it work. Like, I know that I don't want to do this, and here I am doing it again. That's a key indicator that you have the information. The information has sunk in, but we are not taking action because we haven't learned how to do that part. So inside of this whole community, inside all of the classes I teach, inside of all of the consults I have, and inside of my group coaching program, the transformation is all about shifting from being passive and shifting into being proactive, wanting it, making it a priority, committing to it, taking action, not just learning it and then feeling good because we know what to do, right? I know how to not yell. I know the clear method, but yet I'm failing to implement on it. And that's where we go from intention, like knowing the things, to impact. Is it having an impact in my life? And I'm here to call out anyone who wants the transformation, because it's hard. It's nitty gritty. It's gut wrenching. It's not an easy thing. It can bring up so many things. So when we talk through shifting from being passive to being proactive, passive means to not take action and instead just let things happen to them. Right? So this is where all of those fear-based beliefs come up about parenting, like I can't do it, this is too hard, or I'm messing them up, or I'm not good enough. All of those fear-based beliefs pop up. And just like I say with the behavior iceberg, when we are operating from that fear-based belief, when we just believe that things will just magically change on their own, when we just think like, okay, I'll just, be a passive bystander in this, without realizing that we are actually informing it, we are actually guiding it, we can actually take a role in it, we are actually creating it. When we go from that, shifting from passive to proactive, then that shifts the whole belief, and then our behaviors will change. Because I'll tell you what, I guarantee you in a week or so, there will be people who have gotten massive momentum, and then they go right back to what they used to know. Because like I said this whole time, that gravitational pull back to what we know is huge. It's strong. That's why I encourage everyone to either jump into a class or book a consult, or when I open my group coaching program next, hop on it. So that way you can start to ride the momentum and we don't go pull back. Because that pull back, that's where we start to feel discouraged. That's where we start to feel inadequate. And that's because we are confirming all of those fear-based beliefs. And I don't want that. I don't want that for you. And you don't want that for you. And you don't want that for your family. So shifting out of passive, shifting from victim, shifting from martyr, shifting from these things are happening to me, I must change them, not me. Shifting all of those things. Let's let's get all of the cobwebs out. Let's shift all of those things and shift into being proactive. And being a proactive caregiver means creating or controlling a situation by causing something to happen, realizing I am part of the environment. I cannot control my children, which is a question that we're going to get into in a little bit. I cannot control my children, nor do I want to control my children. I need to control me and understand what is it that I have control over so that I can be accountable. So shifting from controlling a situation by causing something to happen rather than responding to it, right? Many of the times, parenting, we shift into parenting when there's conflict, and then we try to shift into change the thing after the thing has happened. I want to get to before. Let's catch the signs of before things happen, so then we become proactive, so then we can shift into like creating and learning from those moments. That's what the CLEAR method is all about. Connection, limit, empowerment, accountability, recovery. And recovery is all about assessing, reflecting, apologizing, reconnecting, and making that plan for how are we going to be proactive the next time. That's who I want to work with. That's the caliber of parents that I'm here to support and cheer on. And that's the parent that I made this challenge for, to get them to bring awareness into like, hey, let's illuminate some things. Let's illuminate what's going on so that we can show up to be not passive anymore. Like now we know, going through this challenge, we know that there is a method that our wins have proven to us. We've proven that this can work. We've proven that we can do it. Someone is calling me. Don't they know I'm on a Facebook Live? I'm right in the heat of it. But shifting from being passive to shifting into being proactive. I lost my train of thought in my fire. Oh, here we go. All right, so let's talk about what does that mean? What are the qualities or the values that I want to encourage you to invest in? And the first is to become aspirational. Aspiration is all about, are we open to wanting more? Are we open to the desire to enjoy our children? Are we open to the work it takes? Are we open to learning it? Do we want this even? And we can even just say like, do you want to invest in it or do you not want to invest in it? And then that becomes a choice. So aspiration means, are we open to this or are we closed? Do we not want it? Do we not want to see how we can improve? Are we blocked even to stepping into it? And then where is the block and do we want to remove the block? That's the first step. I cannot make anyone do this. You cannot make anyone do this, which again circles back to one of the questions that was in the Q&A post, which I think is so good. We have to create that feeling of wanting and being open. And why is because we have to be prepared for what it involves, the change it involves. So aspiration is the first thing for you to hold on to. And you could ask yourself, am I open to committing to this? Am I open to prioritizing this? Or is it really not that important? Like it's a nice thing to have, but it's not a need. Is it a want? There we go. Is it a want or is it a need? A want is like, well, yeah, I could take it or leave it. Like it's nice. Like things aren't that bad. Like I've gotten this far. I can get to the next stage. Or is it like, no, I need this. I want this. So that's aspiration, right? The second part is education. Understanding that there is new information and new concepts to learn. And we have to give ourselves grace in learning them. We have to be open to learning them. So, ice just hit my window. So when we talk through that, aspiration is like, okay, I want to solve potty training, right? So now we can say, okay, aspiration, am I open to learning it or am I close to learning it? I'm just going to be kind of more a passive participant. When we decide that we're open, that we have the aspiration, that we want to gain some new information, then that helps guide us towards the information. What is it what are some misconceptions about potty training? What are some myths that I hear that maybe are going to provide setbacks? Where is some space for me to explore so that I can gain new information? Because maybe if potty training your child is something you're doing for the first time, maybe you don't have that education. And it's not a ding on your capability or your ability. It's just a missing skill, a missing habit. Same with behavior. There is so many misbeliefs and myths around behavior and how we manage behavior, especially with children. There's a huge, my whole platform is trying to bring new education, new awareness, teach new skills on how to show up to be not a passive caregiver, but a proactive caregiver. And that involves learning new information and learning new concepts and shifting paradigms. And then the third part of this is application. Application is practice, and practice taking aligned action. So our habits, our skills, our beliefs are reinforced time and time again with what we are showing up to practice. And so application is all about practicing over and over again, but practicing taking aligned action. Because we know, we do what we know. If I knew how to do something differently, I would do it. So if we are constantly engaging in power struggles, that's illumination, that perhaps this is what we know to do. We know to pick the battle. We know to fight. We know to try to overpower. And then behaviors escalate, things escalate, and that's us saying, hey, I'm going to learn from this. I want to solve this problem. And maybe it takes me learning something new so that I learn how to stop showing up in this way. Because I've been down this path before. I know where we're going. That's our habit. That's our routine. And I want something different. That's that aspiration kicking in. Hey, I want something different. And as soon as someone says, I want something different, I'm here to share with them. It is possible. It is 100% possible. It might be hard. It might be challenging. It might be painful at times. But that pain is worth it for the reward for the outcome, for the consequence of a connected relationship. And that's what I'm here for. Like I said, it all boils down to practicing. What are we practicing? And those are our habits. What are our parenting habits? Yelling is a habit. Punishing is a habit. Bribing is a habit. And so when we can bring awareness to those habits, then we can start to practice different habits. And I love this graphic. It came from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he describes habits as kind of like where the intersection of knowledge, what to do and why to do it, the desire or that aspiration, the wanting to do it, and then the skills, which are the how-tos. Where all those intersect, that's your habits. And so when we can explore what habits we're practicing, then we can shift again from being that passive caregiver to that proactive caregiver. So now the question for you is not how will you let this sink in, right? Being that passive person, I'm just going to allow it to sink in. And I'm going to challenge that question and ask you, how will you cultivate the habits that will support your desired outcomes? That shifts us into a role of accountability. That shifts us into a role of being proactive. That shifts us into being the person who's going to take responsibility out of being that passive caregiver, thinking things like time will decrease the behaviors, or if I just give them more love, then that will decrease the behavior, shifting away from those. So I thought that was such an important thing to talk about today. As we're closing out and moving into whatever's next for you, asking yourself how, now that you know that it's possible, now that you've had practice kind of doing it, how are you going to take this and cultivate it so that you can support your desired outcomes? Friends, that was on my heart through ice storm and internet troubles. I had to come and share with you because I just see it as a mistake that many parents make, that once it gets hard, we stop doing it and we say things like it doesn't work. And I will tell you, it will work every single time when we learn how to implement and practice and show up. And perhaps that takes more awareness in areas to implement it. Maybe that takes more education, learning the skills and habits and tools needed. Maybe that just requires more practice. And maybe that looks like joining a class for support in it. Booking a consult to ask like, hey, how do I make this work for me? This is what I'm doing. What am I doing wrong? What can I do differently? How can I build a plan?